Red Hood. Jason Todd was never supposed to come back. That was the whole point. His death in A Death in the Family was brutal, fan-voted, and final. The kind of moment that shaped Batman for decades. Bruce Wayne carried that guilt like a second cape. It defined him. And then DC said, yeah, nah, let's undo all that. Under the Hood dropped in 2005 and flipped everything. Jason was back, not just alive, angry, lethal, and suddenly using the Joker's old alias, Red Hood. Superboy Prime punched reality so hard it rewrote continuity. That's the official reason. Then they added a dip in the Lazarus pit just to seal the deal. Reality-breaking punch plus resurrection soup, the ultimate comic book comeback recipe. For a moment, it worked. Jason was unhinged, unpredictable, a dark mirror of what Batman could have become. But that mirror cracked fast. DC never fully committed to Jason's ideology. One issue, he's a Punisher-type anti-hero. The next, he's a whiny edgelord shooting cops and sulking in alleys. Then, New 52 happened and pushed him into a cringe mess with Starfire and Arsenal. Fans who once saw potential just saw a guy stuck in a loop, always mad, never progressing. And here's where it actually stings. Jason's return chipped away at Batman's core. Death used to be the one thing that stuck, the line Bruce couldn't undo. But once Jason was back, sharing panels with the guy who murdered him, the weight of a death in the family collapsed. Suddenly, the Joker didn't take a son, just created drama. It also wrecked the Bat family dynamic. Jason's forgiven, brought into the fold, while others are sidelined for lesser mistakes. Compare that to Bucky's comeback. The Winter Soldier arc gave him depth, consequences, and lasting direction. Jason, he got angst, inconsistent writing, and a jacket that aged better than the storyline. They tried to fix it with solo titles, rebirth arcs, and new teams, but the damage stuck. What was once the most powerful death in Batman's canon became a continuity headache, and a reminder that some stories don't need a sequel. SpiderMan. SpiderMan's had more retcons than web cartridges, and somehow 3 of them almost broke the entire character, all in different ways, but with the same result, long-term damage. Let's start with the clone saga. In the 90s, Marvel thought it'd be fun to reveal that Peter Parker might have been a clone this entire time, not for an arc, for years. Ben Reilly, the long-lost original, shows up, Peter retires, and suddenly the last 2 decades of stories are hanging by a thread. Fans were furious. So was editorial. They rushed to reverse it, but the damage was done. Sales dipped, trust dipped harder, and Peter's identity took a hit it never fully recovered from. Then came Sins Past. This one's infamous. Gwen Stacy, Peter's first love, the symbol of innocence in his tragic backstory, is revealed to have secretly slept with Norman Osborn and had twins. Yes, Green Goblin Norman. It's not edgy, it's disgusting. And it made Gwen look out of character beyond belief. Fans were horrified. Writers later tried to erase it, and in 2022, Marvel quietly confirmed it never happened, but readers never forgot. And then came the grand finale. One more day. Aunt May gets shot. Peter makes a deal with Mephisto to save her life, at the cost of erasing his marriage to Mary Jane from existence. The entire marriage. Gone. Just like that. It reset the character for relatability, but stripped away 2 decades of emotional growth. Most fans still call it the worst Spider-Man story ever published. Even the writers weren't fully on board. Editorial forced the ending. Each of these retcons had a different motive. Sales, shock value, editorial fear, but all 3 chipped away at Spider-Man's identity, not his powers, his soul. They didn't just tweak canon, they broke trust, and Marvel's still patching it up. Green Lantern. Back in the early 90s, DC made one of its boldest moves ever. It broke Hal Jordan. After Mongol destroyed Coast City, Hal spiraled. He begged the Guardians to fix it. They said no, and he snapped. He dismantled the Green Lantern Corps, killed fellow Lanterns, and absorbed all the power from the Central Battery. That was his villain origin, Parallax. It was raw, tragic, and powerful. But then DC wanted Hal back. The problem was they'd already made him a mass murderer. So in 2004, Green Lantern, Rebirth, dropped the cleanup bomb. It rewrote Hal's downfall as the fault of a cosmic fear parasite called Parallax, an ancient yellow entity that had possessed him. The entire destruction of the Corps was no longer on him. Technically, the blame shifted elsewhere. To some fans, it worked. It expanded the mythos, gave us the emotional spectrum, and laid the foundation for Blackest Night. But at its core, it flipped one of the most interesting character arcs in DC history. Hal didn't fall because he was broken. He fell because of a fear demon. The accountability vanished. The retcon also turned the Lantern lore into something far more abstract. Emotions became colors, possession became a plot tool, and Hal's redemption lost weight because the sin got outsourced to a space worm. It also set a weird precedent. You could erase guilt with the right lore twist, and that made later arcs feel cheaper, less earned. Jeff Johns gave Hal incredible stories post-Rebirth, no question, but the retcon itself smoothed over a jagged edge that was meant to stay sharp. Hal was once the man who fell from grace and fought his way back. Now he's the guy who got mind hijacked. Same costume, same ring, but less character underneath. Captain America. The panel dropped in Captain America. Steve Rogers, #1. Steve turns to a Hydra agent, whispers, "Hail Hydra," and the internet exploded. Fans thought it was a prank. It wasn't. This was Marvel's new direction. Captain America had been a secret Hydra sleeper agent all along. Nick Spencer's run flipped everything. According to this new canon, Steve was always loyal to Hydra. The twist? Red Skull had used the Cosmic Cube, in the form of a little girl named Kobek, to rewrite Steve's memories and reshape his entire history. For a year, readers followed a twisted version of Cap, who rose through the ranks, took over SHIELD, and eventually led Hydra in conquering America during the Secret Empire event. Marvel insisted it was bold storytelling. Critics and fans called it tone-deaf. The idea of turning a character created by Jewish artists during World War II, who once punched Hitler on the cover of his first issue, into a fascist icon sparked global backlash. Some stores even refused to sell the comics. Creators received death threats, and Marvel's PR team couldn't spin it fast enough. Eventually, they walked it all back. Kobek restored the real Steve Rogers, who then fought and defeated Hydra Steve. But the damage stuck. The mainline Steve, the one readers follow today, is technically a post-cosmic cube construct, a version born from rewritten memories. The old Steve's legacy is blurred, his history overwritten, and his symbolism dented. Marvel tried to frame it as a story about identity, manipulation, and resistance, but to many, it felt like a betrayal. A hero who stood for justice had been bent into a narrative stunt, and no amount of cube rewrites could erase the fact that fans watched Captain America lead a fascist regime for months. The Sentry. Marvel introduced a Superman-level powerhouse with a fractured mind, a hero erased from the world's memory for everyone's safety. His presence was wrapped in mystery, his past woven into decades of forgotten lore. His 2000 debut teased a lost Silver Age hero forgotten by time, with ties to the Fantastic Four, Hulk, and the Avengers. It was a mystery, a myth. Then things got messy. As more writers touched the character, the origins started breaking. First, they retconned him into a junkie who accidentally created a serum, the same one that gave him the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. He wasn't chosen. He wasn't engineered. He stumbled into it like a cosmic drug deal gone wrong. Then came the Void, the Sentry's dark counterpart. At first, the Void was framed as a psychological projection, all of Robert Reynolds' fear and self-hate given form. But later arcs made it a literal cosmic being, then a demon, then a psychic virus, then a biblical angel of death. The explanation stacked like bad DLC. By the time he joined the Dark Avengers, Sentry was so inconsistent that even Norman Osborn manipulated him like a pawn. One issue, he's melting gods. The next, he's crying in a corner. Readers couldn't keep track of who he was, and neither could the writers. They killed him off multiple times, each with a different explanation, and none of it stuck. Even worse, his presence warped the continuity around him. For someone that powerful, his absence from major events like Infinity War or Civil War made no sense. Each retcon added more confusion, turning him into a narrative glitch rather than a grounded part of the universe. Today, he's barely mentioned. No movie, no major reboot, no ongoing book. Wonder Woman. Before the reboot, the Amazons were built on mythology and meaning. Forged from clay and divine power, they were protectors, philosophers, and symbols of compassion wrapped in strength. Wonder Woman's origin was unique, a child of magic, not man. Then, the New 52 showed up and decided that wasn't gritty enough. Diana was no longer sculpted by her mother. Now she was the daughter of Zeus. The Amazons were reimagined as predators, their legacy rewritten into something darker and more brutal. According to the new canon, they sailed out to seduce unsuspecting sailors, used them for reproduction, then murdered them and dumped the bodies in the sea. Male offspring were handed off to Hephaestus like factory scraps in exchange for weapons. The rewrite flattened decades of nuanced world building. DC replaced mythology with shock value, tossing aside the soul of Themyscira for Game of Thrones aesthetics. The moral compass that once made the Amazons special was overwritten with blood and betrayal. And the Zeus is her dad twist robbed Diana's origin of its symbolic weight. Now she was another demigod in a cape, not the one-of-a-kind miracle forged by women for peace. Writers and fans pushed back. Greg Rucka returned during Rebirth and quietly erased the new 52 version. He restored the Clay origin, reinstated the compassion-driven culture of the Amazons, and buried the sailor-slaying lore where it belonged. But the damage lingered. TikTok clips and YouTube shorts kept spreading the new 52 version like it was gospel. Casual fans still quote it. Diana's reputation took a hit in pop culture not because of her movies, but because a 4-year run rewrote her world into something alien. Batman. Batman's had some strange moments across his publishing history. Rainbow suits, shark repellents, and whatever all-star Batman and Robin was trying to be. But in 2008, a single line of dialogue managed to derail decades of mythos. The moment came in Batman, Cacophony #1, written by Kevin Smith. And yes, it involved him peeing his pants. The scene revisits a flashback to Batman, Year 1, where Bruce is shot and bleeding out in the manor, pleading for a sign to become more than just a man. In Frank Miller's original, it's one of Batman's most vulnerable and iconic moments. Kevin Smith added a twist. Bruce, narrating in his inner monologue, says he hadn't gone to the bathroom in over 24 hours, and he let a little go. Fans weren't amused. Some thought it was a joke, others thought it was parody, but no, it was played straight. The moment which once defined Batman's spiritual rebirth now included an awkward urinary confession. Even Smith later admitted on a podcast that he didn't expect it to blow up the way it did. And that's the thing. It did blow up. The internet never forgot. The line kept resurfacing in forums, memes, and angry threads. DC never acknowledged it again. No writer referenced it. No editor tried to canonize it. It became the kind of moment that fans collectively agreed to bury. This wasn't a retcon that changed timelines or identities, it changed perception. Batman isn't supposed to be flawless, but reducing his most iconic transformation to an embarrassing detail was a swing and a miss. Not edgy, not humanizing, just weird. The mutant mess. Marvel's mutant continuity was always complex, but in the last decade, it went from messy to flat-out self-destructive. 3 major characters were tossed in and out of mutant status like it was a game of editorial ping-pong: Wanda Maximoff, Franklin Richards, and most recently Kamala Khan. Let's start with Wanda. For decades, she was Magneto's daughter and one of the most powerful mutants alive. Then, in Avengers and X-Men Axis 2014, Marvel quietly planted the seed that maybe she wasn't a mutant at all. Then, in Uncanny Avengers, they confirmed it. Wanda and Pietro were now experiments, created by the High Evolutionary. No Magneto, no X gene. Years of storytelling gutted because of behind-the-scenes rights issues with Fox. She went from mutant royalty to narrative orphan overnight. Then came Franklin Richards. The son of Reed and Sue Richards, Franklin had been a mutant since the 80s, powerful enough to create entire universes. He even had a Cerebro profile. But in Fantastic Four number 26, 2020, Marvel dropped the bomb. Franklin wasn't a mutant. His powers just made him think he was. That's right, the character literally retconned himself out of mutant status. And then there's Kamala Khan. For years, she was defined as an Inhuman, part of Marvel's push to build the Inhumans as a mutant replacement. But after the Inhuman hype died down, Marvel decided to reboot Kamala as a mutant. This happened in X-Men, Hellfire Gala 2023. Her resurrection was tied to Krakoan mutant tech, and she now carries both mutant and Inhuman genes depending on who's writing her. Each of these changes didn't just rewrite origin stories. They fractured identity, erased legacy, and pushed fan trust to the brink. None of them were handled organically. They were sudden, editorially driven rewrites trying to keep pace with corporate agendas. And the result? A continuity so warped that even the characters don't know what they are anymore. X-Men. The Dark Phoenix saga was a defining moment in comic book history. Jean Grey's transformation into a cosmic force of destruction, her inner struggle and ultimate sacrifice, it gave the X-Men emotional depth few other teams ever touched. The story mattered because it was her. Jean lost control. Jean destroyed a planet. Jean paid the price. Then Fantastic Four number 286 dropped in 1986 and retconned all of it. According to this fix, Jean never died. The Phoenix Force had duplicated her body and memories, stashed the real Jean in a healing cocoon underwater, and carried on with her face while committing galactic genocide. So technically, the one who destroyed the Debari star system wasn't Jean, just the Phoenix wearing her face. On paper, that resolved the issue. In practice, it only made things messier. This rewrite was done to make Jean viable for X Factor. A new book, reuniting the original X-Men lineup, but it came at a steep cost. The emotional weight of the Dark Phoenix arc, the trauma, the guilt, the redemption, all of it was now pinned on a cosmic doppelganger. Cyclops leaving his wife and child for a resurrected Jean suddenly made even less sense, and the message of the original saga, power, corruption, and consequence, got buried under continuity gymnastics. The worst part? The retcon never stuck cleanly. Later writers played hot potato with the lore. Sometimes Jean was partly responsible, other times she was completely innocent. The Phoenix itself got redefined over and over, sometimes a force of rebirth, other times a literal god or a sentient bird made of fire that really liked redheads. By trying to undo the tragedy, Marvel gutted one of the greatest arcs in their library. The story still gets praised, but now with a permanent asterisk. Jean Grey didn't fall, the Phoenix did, and fans were left asking why they cared so deeply about a clone in the first place. The Flash. Barry Allen used to be a forensic scientist who got struck by lightning, that's it. A lab accident, a bolt of electricity, and boom, the fastest man alive. Then DC started stacking lore onto that origin until they accidentally turned Barry into a walking paradox. Then came the Speed Force, a cosmic energy that powers all speedsters. It was first introduced in the 90s during Wally West's run, meant to explain why these guys could break physics without turning into vapor. Fine. Cool concept. But then Flash. Rebirth dropped in 2009 and added a twist no one asked for. Barry Allen didn't just tap into the Speed Force, he created it. According to Jeff Johns' rewrite, the moment Barry was struck by lightning, he didn't just gain powers, he unleashed the Speed Force across the multiverse. Retroactively, every speedster, from Jay Garrick to Wally West to Bart Allen, got their powers from an event that hadn't even happened yet in their own timelines. The result was Barry becoming a god-level anchor point in DC continuity. Instead of being one of many legacy heroes, he became the source of all speed-based powers. Every time he runs, he fuels the field. Every time he dies, time cracks. It inflated his importance to a degree that left everyone else, especially Wally, feeling like backups. Even worse, it complicated time travel arcs beyond repair. Between Flashpoint, Reverse Flash manipulations, and multiversal resets, Barry's status as both engine and passenger of the Speed Force made continuity a nightmare. Writers had to explain every speedster story with cosmic metaphysics instead of, lightning and adrenaline. Barry Allen was once the guy who died saving the universe. Now he's the reason the universe keeps breaking. And somehow it all traces back to that one bolt of lightning that apparently rewrote reality itself. And there you have it, 10 comic retcons that didn't just tweak the lore, they torched it. But here's the real question. If writers can rewrite anything, what story do you think they'll erase next? And what's the one retcon they'll never dare to touch, no matter how broken the canon gets? Comment down below as you leave a like. Subscribe for more videos like this one.